Hey everybody, good morning. I know it's earlier morning some places than others, so thank you so much for joining me yet again for Enchanted April, day 27. We've been at this a while and we don't have too many more to go. So I do want to invite everybody who's watching, whether you're watching live, good morning Lynn, or whether you're catching this at some point later, that if you do want to hear about something in particular, please put it in the comment boxes or message me on Facebook or find me some way. We certainly know how to find each other nowadays. That's one of the great blessings and graces of being alive in 2020, even though we're dealing with some other stuff too. So the quotation for today comes from Creating a Charmed Life, and it says, "Behind the glory nearly everyone wants to attain is a degree of discomfort nearly everyone wants to avoid." I remember when that hit me back when I was writing Creating a Charmed Life a really long time ago, that the people certainly that I admire are very often the people who did stuff that I had not been willing to do. So dancers, for instance, I see Star is here with us this morning. She is a dancer, and I would see these people spend so much time and talk about discomfort. Oh my gosh, those point shoes and what they do to people's feet. It's a lot. And yet they had a goal, they had a vision, they saw something that they wanted to do. One of my favorite dancer quotes comes from Rudolf Nureyev, and he said, "Ballet never becomes easy. It does become possible." And I think when we have some of these great big dreams and aspirations, it's probably like that. They may never become easy, but my goodness, how cool is it to stick with them until they do indeed become possible. So I just want to riff a little bit this morning on this whole idea of discomfort and what we hope to do in the world and with our lives and even internally with our own soul growth. So I think part of it is just plain old physical discomfort. I talked about dancers. I admire athletes the same way, singers who are willing to practice, musicians. I mean, I think about practicing something like a violin. There's physical discomfort to that when you do it for a long time, and yet some people are willing to do it, and my natural inclination was not. So what can I learn from these people who either got it naturally or who just learned very early on that suiting up, showing up, and doing what they intend to do is worth whatever discomfort that it takes? So when I think about physical discomfort just in regular life, the first thing that comes up for me is exercise. And I know there's a bell curve about exercise. So right in the wonderful sweet spot there in the middle are people who are committed. Maybe they're athletes. Athletes are going to be a little further over on the curve. Maybe they're just people who get up every day and say, "I do this. I don't think about it. I don't worry about it. I don't argue with myself about it. I just do it." And then, of course, you've got the other end of one end of that bell curve is people who exercise compulsively. There's an actual thing called exercise bulimia. They just can't not do it. Even if they're sick, even if there's a hurricane outside, they're going to get out and do it. And I have to tell you, even though I understand that's a disorder, I understand nobody should want a disorder, I sometimes look at them and think, could you just give me a little bit of it so that maybe you'll have less, I'll have more, and it'll all work out in the end. Because there is on this other side a kind of person that's like me that just would really rather not do anything that isn't one of the wonderful civilized sitting activities. Oh, I love the sitting activities. I love to read. I love to have conversations. I love to write, obviously. I love to think. I love to go to the theater and even watch fabulous television. Whoever thought television would get this good? And that's where my mind lives. But because of who I am and my history and circumstances, I kind of grew up living from the chin up. I had problems with food and weight and all that stuff for many years. So such as it is, I end up as I am. And as I am means that I can be periodic about exercise. Somebody help me out here. Somebody tell me if I'm the only person on earth who's like this, or if you have it too. And what that means is that when I get into working out, I work out. And I can do this for a year. I mean, every single day, I've got the cardio, I got the flexibility, I got the weights, I'm doing the thing. And then I feel like I am someone who has done this forever. And somebody tells me, oh God, I just don't exercise. And I'm thinking, well, why not? I do. But then when I fall off and I'm that person, I feel like the hardest thing to do, like when a gym is available, not now, the machine in that gym that is the most daunting is the front door. To just get into the place and be willing to do that is difficult for me. And so now it's really interesting because the gym is not open to me. I realize the great outdoors is out there, but given my age and statistical susceptibility to not do well if I were to come down with COVID-19, I'm not using the outdoors either. So I have to find ways in a not huge apartment to get some movement in. And you know what happens if I don't? I feel bad about myself. And if I feel bad about myself, then that spills over into the other parts of my life. Do you guys find this too? I'm hoping that somebody is relating here. So when I get into one of those kind of places where I just don't want to move, I call it activity resistance disorder. I actually wrote about that in my book, The Good Karma Diet. Oh, I thought I had a copy of it that I could show you. Yeah, because I figured if it had a real name and it could be called ARD and you could go to a doctor or a therapist and get help for it and insurance would pay for it, it would be a real thing. But I know it's a real thing. And I also know that there is a real antidote. So I'm talking about exercise. Maybe your thing is something else. But the antidote is to experience the discomfort and do it anyway. And I don't know that this applies to absolutely everything on earth that's intimidating, but certainly for exercise, the discomfort goes away and it actually becomes kind of nice often. Not always. So that's my first thought on discomfort. Then the second thing is boredom, putting up with boredom. And for me, that's one of the things that ties in with the exercise. I mean, I have orthopedic things. I mean, I can't like run out on the concrete and people tell me how magnificent that is, and I'm sure it is. But for me, I have to be on a treadmill. And so that is boring unless I'm listening to a really fabulous podcast or audiobook. And so I make sure that I have that. So boring in just regular life, I think, is another problem that people have with not being able to put in the actions that we need sometimes to get where we want. And one of the coolest things to embrace is routine. Every day I do this. Every day I meditate. Every day I exercise. In fact, to me, that's a little acronym, ME. I call it Me in the Morning, M-E. If I take care of me with meditation and exercise, then the whole day I can take care of other people and the business and saving the planet and all the rest. But that me in the morning is really essential. And so what's your routine? In fact, share with us your routine here. What you do that helps you do the things every day that build the kind of day that you want to have tomorrow. And what's interesting is when one first hears that word routine, it's like, oh, boring, but it becomes so embracing. I love my routine. In Ayurveda, they actually have a word for daily routine, diancharya, and they believe that it's so important for your physical health to have that getting up at the same time, go to bed at the same time, eat your meals around the same time. The body expects that, and it responds with good health. So who knew boredom could be so cool? Then there is not giving up. We've all heard, don't quit 5 minutes before the miracle. And that's just so important, because it's easy to get discouraged, and yet we just don't know how far along the line we are. I think about that. I'm seeing those of you here that I know are pretty much people that I know in the vegan and animal rights world, so you'll understand what I'm saying about this. We don't know where we are with those issues. I think about the abolition of human slavery, and people were working hard to abolish that hundreds of years before it actually happened. So we don't know on the great calendar whether we're still in the 1600s with the animal rights vegan thing. We don't know if we're in 1862. And so we just have to do the work, and we just might be 5 minutes from the miracle. Procrastination. Ooh, that's another one. I mentioned earlier how I love the Franklin planner system, the Franklin Covey system. And they talk about giving each item on your to-do list an A, B, or C. A is critical, crucial, gotta do it today, this is important. B is, yeah, this is important too, but if I don't do it today, it's not gonna be a problem. C is, I can do this, I can not do it, I can put it off for a week and a half, who cares? And what they say, and what I found is true, is that those C items are always the ones that we're drawn to, because they don't have pressure. They don't seem to have this kind of do or die quality about them. And it's just so sweet to be able to take your time and do something that you don't really have to be doing anyway. So I'm real careful when I look at those A, B's, and C's, and when I just say, oh, let me just get this C out of the way, at least I know I'm fooling myself. Then there's getting out there and doing what you want to be doing before you believe in yourself. This is really important, because a lot of us feel like, oh, we've got, what do they call that? Imposter syndrome. Like, oh my goodness, I can't do that. Well, who's going to do it if you don't do it? If it's yours to do and you have the inspiration and you have the idea, it is yours. If somebody else did it, you'd say, they stole it. Okay, so do it before somebody can steal it. I think it's so important that we understand that, especially in a time like this, we need heroes. And I think it's so easy to have the idea, well, wait, that's somebody else. But if everybody thought that, we would have no heroes. So that's not to say that we are all hero material, but we don't know if we are or not unless we step up and step out and try to do that. So here's to heroes. Then there is worrying about what other people think. Oh my goodness, it took me so long to realize that there was nothing that I could do that would make everybody like me. And it was almost a thing about logic of, but I'm so well-meaning. So what? Not everybody's going to like me. They're not going to like my style. They're not going to like my ideas. They're not going to agree with me. And to just be able, instead of saying, oh, somebody disliked me, to say, next. And I'll tell you who I learned that from. Remember those books, not a vegan title at all, but a huge series of successful books called Chicken Soup for the Soul. So I was at, it was the Book Expo America, and those two extremely successful, well, I guess you'd call them editors. They're not really authors because those books were other people's stories, but they were talking about succeeding in the world, and somebody said, but what do you do every time you get rejected? And he said, you say, next. And I love that. I love that because it's kind of like kissing frogs till you get to the prince. Sometimes it's the rejections get you to the great big acceptance. And how about getting back in the game after failure or after what seems like failure? You know, I think sometimes we think we fail when the rest of the world is like, you did fine. And it's embarrassing to show up after failure, and yet we admire when people do. Remember all those Oprah confessions? when she used to have her daily show, people would go on there after just having terrible misjudgments and other things happen in their lives, and they'd do the Oprah mea culpa, and their careers would be saved. So whenever we fail, or whenever we think we fail, we can take a little time off and nurture those wounds, but then let's get up and let's get back and let's get out there, because as I said, the world needs heroes, and you know what? Who's going to do it if we don't? So some ways that I have found to help us through this stuff. One is to bookend with a buddy. And that means you find somebody out there who is willing to let you check in with them before and after doing what's difficult. We're all very good at showing up when somebody else is counting on us. Then you can also just partner for the activity itself. I mean, not right now, we're not going to the gym with other people or going to the gym at all, but certainly to have somebody else. Maybe you want to do a project. Maybe you need somebody else in on that with you. Whatever it is, sometimes two heads are better than one, and two bodies at that gym are better too. Then there is picking one thing to focus on. I think the reason New Year's resolutions tend to fall apart is that we have so many of them. It's like, okay, this year I'm going to get magnificently fit. I am going to be the most wonderful wife, mother, and friend. I am going to double my business. I am going to do some great philanthropic work that will change at least some part of the world. Those are all wonderful aims, but that's a lot of juggling. So maybe pick one, and then you've got a really good chance of getting it. Then love yourself up. Sometimes we treat ourselves so harshly. So with your words and your actions, if you got some inner voice saying, oh my God, you did that again, just say, yeah, I did. Aren't I delightfully human? We've really got to be nice to ourselves. I was researching one of my books, I remember, that had to do with food and weight and things like that. And there was a study that the people who did the diet exercise thing didn't lose any more weight than the people that they told, just do whatever you want with your food and your exercise, but at least 4 days a week, give yourself a lovely massage with lotion. And so the people who love themselves up achieve the same goal as the people who were, okay, I'm going to do this Marine Corps thing and get it done. Both ways work. One way's just a lot more pleasant. And finally, let others love you. So often, if we heard negative things about ourselves, even in our childhoods, that gets stuck in the brain, and it's really hard not to believe that stuff going forward. And yet, when people that we really care about, people that we love, people that we respect, say to you, my God, you're incredible. Look at who you are. Look at what you did. Look at this particular piece of work you just produced. Do you see this? We're like, no, because we're hearing those other messages from antiquity. So if somebody is in your life and you value them enough to keep them in your life, then when they tell you you're fabulous, give them the respect of accepting that indeed you are. So I hope that you have an enchanted April 27th. And I did post on my Facebook friend page earlier today the memes for today and for the next 3 days going forward. So anything that you have to say about those, or that you'd like covered on those topics, or anything you'd like addressed that has to do with anything else that you think I might have something to say about, just message me or put it on the Facebook feed, and we'll try to get through those in the next 3 days. May this one be enchanted, and we'll pick up where we left off tomorrow. Bye, everybody.